Most people exist in a perpetual state of emergency. They wake up, put out fires, pay bills, dodge problems, collapse at night, and repeat. They call it living, but it's not. It's surviving. And there's a massive difference. Survival mode is your brain on low power, like a phone at 3% battery, shutting down everything that isn't essential. No creativity, no exploration, no dreams, just the core functions needed to make it through the day. The ancient philosophers saw this clearly. Aristotle asked a question that still cuts through everything. Is merely living enough, or must we seek what he called Eudaimonia, true flourishing? He argued that the highest human good isn't comfort or safety. It's living well, not just continuing to live. It's the difference between a plant that survives and a garden that thrives. One exists, the other flourishes. And that distinction, that gap between surviving and thriving, is where your entire life lives or dies. Here's what nobody tells you. You can have all your needs met and still be in survival mode. You can have food, shelter, safety, and still live like you're being chased. Because survival mode isn't just about circumstances. It's about consciousness. It's about whether you're running from something or running towards something. The Stoics understood this during times of plague, war, and collapse. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, wrote in his private journals that external chaos doesn't determine your inner state. Epictetus, who was literally a slave, taught that freedom exists in focusing on what you can control and releasing what you can't. They lived through hell and still chose to pursue virtue, meaning purpose. But let's go deeper. The 20th century tore apart every comfortable illusion. 2 world wars, the Holocaust, the atomic bomb, traditional religion and meaning structures collapsed for millions, and out of that rubble came the Existentialists. Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz and discovered something extraordinary. He watched prisoners in the camps. Some gave up and died within days. Others endured years of unimaginable horror. The difference wasn't physical strength, it was meaning. Those who had a why to live for could bear almost any how. He wrote, "Man's search for meaning is the primary motivation in his life. Not pleasure, not power, not comfort. Meaning. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. You don't find meaning. You create it." Jean-Paul Sartre said we are condemned to be free. There's no cosmic purpose handed down, no instruction manual, no default settings. You are radically, terrifyingly free to define what your life means. And that freedom, that responsibility, is what most people run from. They stay in survival mode because it's easier. Because when you're just trying to get through the day, you don't have to face the bigger questions. You don't have to ask, what am I building? What do I stand for? What would I die for? Albert Camus took this even further. He said life is absurd. There is no inherent meaning. We're like Sisyphus, pushing a boulder up a mountain, watching it roll back down, then pushing it up again, forever. But here's the twist. We must imagine Sisyphus happy, not because the task has meaning, but because he chooses to embrace it. He owns his boulder. He makes it his. The rebellion against meaninglessness is the meaning. This is the secret they don't teach you. Escaping survival mode requires 2 movements happening at once. First, the external. You need safety, stability, basic security. Maslow was right about that. You can't self-actualize when you're starving. But here's where most people get stuck. They think once they achieve safety, meaning will just appear. It won't. Second, the internal. You must consciously choose values and pursue them. You must cultivate what Aristotle called phronesis, practical wisdom. You must look at your life and ask, am I doing this out of fear or out of my values? The Buddha saw the same trap from a different angle. He said all suffering comes from attachment, clinging to comfort, to outcomes, to how things should be. Survival mode is the ultimate attachment. Attachment to safety, to control, to not losing what you have. The path out, in Buddhist terms, is letting go, not giving up, but releasing the death grip on certainty, accepting impermanence, embracing change, finding peace not in having everything under control, but in being present regardless. Combine this with Nietzsche, who said the goal is self-overcoming, to become the Übermensch, the person who creates their own values, who loves their fate, amor fati, who sees suffering not as something to avoid, but as the raw material for transformation. So here's what this actually looks like in practice. You stop asking, how do I survive today? You start asking, what am I building? You stop optimizing for comfort. You start optimizing for growth, for challenge, for meaning. You stop avoiding pain. You start choosing which pain you're willing to endure. Because the pain of discipline is one thing. The pain of regret is another. The COVID pandemic showed us this clearly. Millions of people, stripped of their routines, their distractions, their busyness, suddenly faced the void. And the question came roaring back. What is this all for? Climate change, economic collapse, endless crises. These aren't just external threats. They're existential mirrors forcing us to ask, are we just reacting? or are we living? Here's the practical framework. 1. Stabilize the foundation. Fix the basics. Sleep, nutrition, safety, money. Not perfectly, but functionally. You can't think clearly when your nervous system is on fire. 2. Audit your life journal. Sit with yourself. Ask, if my basic needs were met, what would I choose to do? What am I doing out of fear versus values? What would I do if I knew I had 5 years left? These are Stoic exercises. They work. 3. Choose one value-driven goal, not a survival goal, a thriving goal. Something creative, something contributive, something challenging. One small action per week that's aligned with who you want to become. 4. Embrace discomfort, intentionally. Cold showers, hard conversations, creative risks. Train yourself to choose difficulty on your terms so you stop fearing difficulty in general. 5. Serve something beyond yourself. Frankl was right, meaning comes through contribution. Volunteer, teach, create, help. Even small acts pull you out of self-centered survival. 6. Practice negative visualization. The Stoics did this. Imagine losing what you have, your health, your home, your loved ones. Not to be morbid, but to appreciate what's here now and to prepare mentally so nothing can truly destroy you. 7. Build community. You can't do this alone. Find people pursuing something real. Not comfort, not distraction, but growth. Here's what happens when you do this. At first, it feels like you're adding weight to an already heavy load. But something shifts. You start to feel alive again. Not just alert, alive. The grind stops being punishment and becomes pursuit. You stop needing external validation because you're aligned internally. You stop scrolling for dopamine because you're generating meaning. This isn't about toxic positivity or denying suffering. This is about transforming your relationship to suffering. Camus chose happiness inside the absurd. Frankl chose meaning inside the concentration camp. Marcus Aurelius chose virtue inside a collapsing empire. You can choose purpose inside your chaos. The existentialists were right. Existence precedes essence. You are not born with a purpose. You are born with the freedom and the burden to create one. And that creation, that deliberate movement from reaction to intention, from survival to flourishing, from fear to value, that's the only game worth playing. So let them stay in low power mode. Let them optimize for safety, for ease, for avoiding discomfort. You've seen what's possible beyond that. You've tasted something better, not happiness, not comfort, meaning. And once you've tasted it, you can never go back. Because the question isn't whether life is hard. It is. It always will be. The question is whether your hardship is building something or just burning you down. Whether you're surviving or becoming. And you already know the answer. Now act like it.